Well, we're here another episode. We've reached episode number 13 of the Coastin podcast with Piv and Finer here on FloHockey, and pleased to welcome someone that I haven't seen play for a while. I've seen play for a few years. Michael Huntebrinker, forward for the Florida Everblades. Hunty, it's great to have you on, man. First of all, it's been like a year and a half since we chatted. So how's everything been with you, man?
Yeah, it's great to see you, and thanks for having me on. Things are good. Not much has changed since the last time we chatted, just kind of a new location, but doing all the same things, just grinding through the season right now.
I'm really disappointed because it's been 30 degrees and cold here for like 3 straight months, but your tan is not really like grown in great. I don't know if I'm missing something here, but what's going on in the tan situation? Why is it not a little bit crisper there?
It must be bad lighting. I don't know. I think I got a pretty good tan going. We golfed yesterday at Tiburon. We're going to play again today. So you can't beat it down here. I think it's 80 degrees right now. So after this call, we're going straight to the course.
So we won't keep you too long then, because I know tee times are very strict, especially.
That's good. We don't tee up till 2:40, so we got plenty of time.
Oh yeah, we got plenty of time, and yeah, this is pre-recorded for those of you watching. So thank you, Hunty, for breaking the fourth wall there. No big deal. But now you've exposed a big secret that we don't do this live when people click on it whenever they want to. Anyway, you playing with the Florida Everblades, your second year with the Blades. Besides the beautiful weather, your ability to get a tan, and the golfing situation, what brought you back to down there to Estero?
Well, I was on. This is the second year of my deal with Milwaukee. Last year, towards the second half of the year, they signed me for the remainder of last season, and then all of this season.
Okay.
So this is the second year of that contract, and unfortunately, they opted out this year. And it was too bad to see the way their season ended last year, because they were first in the league, and so were we down here in Florida. So the organization was having a lot of success, but it's been great. This is my second year, and we've won 10 in a row, and we finally lost in a shootout Saturday night. So the team's having a great year, and it's been good so far.
How, getting that news that Milwaukee wasn't going to play this year, it had to be tough, especially, and you look at some of the other teams in their surrounding areas, that were playing. They were one of 3 teams in the AHL that ended up not opting out this year. What was going through your mind when you heard that? Because you knew you had a spot, you knew it was a place that you wanted to be, you were locked up there for this season. What was kind of your initial reaction to that?
Well, it was with everything this season, everything's been so uncertain. When the East Coast League started, we didn't know if it was going to happen for a month or 2. We didn't know how it was going to go. And then the AHL took a few more weeks to make a decision on if they were even going to play. So I don't think anyone was shocked. No one can blame them for opting out. It's just such an unprecedented time that I can't say I was overly surprised when I heard that they did. It was unfortunate because, obviously you're hoping to play there and hoping to try to stick in that lineup. But for me, it's just, this is kind of a year you just roll with the punches, and luckily it's worked out to where the East Coast League is having great success with fans in the building. So I think at the end of the day, we're fortunate that we're able to play right now, because based on how the year started off, I don't think anyone really knew if that was a possibility. So I'm just happy we're going.
I think maybe a big difference between this year and last year in terms of talking about your personal, scoring success and putting up points. Last year it's the Coast, a point per game guy, and it's the normal Coast where there's guys coming up and down from the SPHL and the AHL, and sometimes the rosters get a little thin. But man, like the Florida roster is unbelievable this year in terms of talent. You guys are obviously having a great year, and you're one of the primary guys in that, tied for the team lead in goals. So how do you view that for yourself personally, that you are having such a great season in a year where the Coast is stacked like maybe even a few American League rosters might be if it was a normal year?
Yeah, there's no question, especially when you look at some of the top teams, us in particular, along with Indy. If you look up and down those lineups, there's a ton of American League experience, and it's almost like every team has guys from all over the league who have proven in this league or proven at the next level. And Yeah, the league is definitely much deeper and much more competitive than it's been in the past. And even, in the past, there's been some lower level teams that, you might be able to have easy nights against, where this year there's none of that. Every team there are plenty of players looking for jobs, so it's competitive. And even within your own team, that competition for spots and to be able to play is really deep. And fortunately for us, I mean, if you look at our depth, it's unbelievable. But I think that's kind of the story across the league this year with most teams.
I mean, you have to almost have that training camp mentality. Like, okay, well, you have a spot on the team, but any given day, if one thing goes wrong or, a mistake is made, it could be like a Lou Gehrig, Wally Pipp situation where someone else comes right in and takes your spot. You always have to kind of be on your A game. Does that kind of strive you to be better, knowing that there are so many guys who really want an opportunity in your shoes? And does that really drive you to be better and motivate you?
Yeah, no question. I think anytime you have that sort of depth and that many guys who are looking for spots, I think it's definitely going to push you. And obviously, we're all competitors and we all want to do well. But especially this year with, your team can flip upside down in a matter of days. If one guy, gets a positive test and then there's close contact with another group, say they were hanging out or at each other's apartment or whatever, all of a sudden you're missing 5 guys from your lineup and somebody who didn't think they were playing is getting, top line minutes. So I think the depth is critical this year.
Let's take it back a little bit to the start of your pro career, and then eventually we'll go back to talk about your college career over at Minnesota State. So it was just, a few years ago, man, that you were tearing up the city of Reading, had a great 2-year career with the Royals. But my recollection of it is that you made a really strong – this is even before I was there – that you made a really strong impression on head coach Kirk McDonald just before the end of the 16-17 season. So you finish your college career at Mankato. Now you're going to Reading. Take us back to that time, what your mentality was in those few games, 8 games it was, that you got in the good old city of positive change.
Yeah, I mean, I loved my time in Reading, and starting out there after college, I just was like any other rookie, no idea what was going on. I think I wore sweatpants to morning skate one day. Had no idea you're supposed to go business casual, but I was just such a, rookie and had no idea really what to expect. But for me, I just remember that being a really exciting time. I just was so excited for a fresh start change. And, going there, the team was right on the cusp of the playoffs. So I got to step right in and see what that's all about. And then I think 2 games in, there was a coaching change. Larry Corville was there when I first signed. And, a few games later, we made the playoffs and he was out and K-Mac was the new guy. So you kind of got to see a little bit of the taste of how pro hockey can be sometimes. And I remember right along that time too, there was the playoff roster freezes and we sent, 2 or 3 guys, we sent them home. And I was like, this is for real. This is, it's kind of cutthroat, and it was a good eye opener for me. So yeah, but in that short time, I was able to really get a taste of what pro hockey is like and how serious it is. And I think it was great for me.
Hey, you got an opportunity right out of college to go hang out in obviously you were saying with the Reading Royals. What led you to signing with Reading? I'm sure you had a couple offers on the table right out of college. What was so important to you, in terms of what you were looking for at that time?
I mean, if you talk to K-Mac, you can talk to him for 5 minutes and just see how genuine of a guy he is. He wants what's best for his players. I have nothing but respect for him, and I feel so fortunate to have played for him. And kind of talking to coaches, you can just tell how passionate he is. And I made that choice, and it was definitely the right one looking back.
In your first year in Reading, a team that made the playoffs in 2017-18, second year was right there. But the first year, it's easy to look at the playoff series versus Manchester and say, oh, it was just, a 4-0 sweep. But that series was, even though, Reading did not win a game in it, the first 3 games went to overtime. The first 2 games went to double overtime. John Muse was standing on his head, and so was Charles Williams. Even the 4th game was a 1-goal game before an empty netter or 2 at the end. that experience of playoff pro hockey, that's, you'd played the year before, but I have to imagine in some respect being a big member of the 17-18 team gave you maybe a new appreciation for what playoff and maybe playoff overtime hockey could look like. What do you remember about that series?
I mean, you might know this more than me, but I think there's a stat out there that we led for like 70 minutes of that series, and they led for maybe 3, and we got swept 4-0. So for me, it was just about, I think we blew a lead every game. We led for most of the game, and then we ended up blowing a third period lead every game. So the first 2 went to double OT, and then the third one single OT. So for me, I just remembered how important every play is, and the level that the ECHL goes to throughout a playoff series is completely different than the regular season. And that's the last taste I've had of playoffs. So for me, it's been 2 years of just waiting to get back in. And that's a big part of why Florida's, is so appealing, because they're always in the hunt. They're always in the mix, and this year's no different. So for me, it's just, you realize now how hard it is to even get into the playoffs. Like I said, I haven't been back. And, how big every play is kind of. I know it sounds cliche, but it's just such a fun time, and your team is such a close group at that point. So I'm itching to get back there for sure.
Yeah, and especially against a team at the time like Manchester, where in North Division, there's no one who's a stranger to anyone else in that division. You guys got to see them quite a bit that year, and knowing you get an opportunity to see a team so often, and I'm sure it's the same way in the South too, because especially this season, you're playing a lot of the same teams over and over again. When you go into a playoff series against a team that you've seen so many times, how much more amped up is that rather than, a team that you might see once or maybe twice a year?
Yeah, I mean, there's no questioning the fact that whenever you play a team that much, you start to hate each other, just because no matter what, if you play a team 15, 20 times, somebody's going to tick you off at some point of the series or some game. So I think just that much, when you play a team that frequently, there's going to be bad blood there. And, you're not catching them by surprise. They know who your best players are, and same for you. And it just, there's no surprises.
The second year you're with the Royals, you had a very nice stint with Lehigh Valley Phantoms. Remember, you had a few of the, the classic shootout goals. You didn't want the highlights to be tweeted because people would pick up on the move that you were making there to fool everyone. But you had a really good stint up there with Lehigh Valley. What was that like for you, man? Like, it's your first taste of AHL. You're just a level below at that point, and you're doing it with one of the, really premier organizations in the American Hockey League.
Yeah, Lehigh Valley, they were first class, and it was great for me just to get a taste of that league and see what it's all about. And you realize that there's more depth, but at the end of the day, it's not that much different from the ECHL. The high-end ECHL players could all play at that level, and I think for me, it was a good experience just seeing that I could easily play at that level, and it was good confidence for me. And the more I played there, the more I kind of settled in. And and just the way that, it's obviously a great organization and really professional. And I really enjoyed my time there.
Piv, to jump in here, because I just remembered this. You were an all-star in 17-18, but the way that you actually got to Indianapolis was a little bit different for some other all-stars. So Royals were in Manchester. What happened, man?
Oh, well, that whole week, we had a 3-3, and Friday night we had the crease issue where we had to delay the start because there was stuff showing in the crease. Do you remember that?
No, it was against Adirondack, if I'm not mistaken.
In Adirondack. Saturday, our bus broke down on the way to Adirondack. We had to wait for a new bus, and we got to the rink at like 7:00, and I think we got smoked. I think they scored like 4 in the first period. And then finally Sunday rolls around, and I guess there was like a league rule that you weren't allowed to play the day before the All-Star game or something. But of course, KMAC found a way to make it happen. So it's like, good news, you're playing today. Bad news, you got to leave in the third period to make your flight. So we're playing, and we're playing in Manchester, and going into the third, I had 2 goals, and then we had like a power play. It's like, all right, you have one more shift to score, and if you don't score, you're out of here, or like no matter what, you know. So go out, play the shift, come back, and Jay Bird, the equipment manager in Reading, called for an Uber for me. And so I'm walking out with my gear. No idea what color car it is, what kind of car it is. So I'm just walking around the streets looking for an Uber. So the game lets out and there's thousands of people in the streets, and I'm still walking around with my gear. Finally rushed to the airport. Luckily, it was a small airport and I got right through. Well, I get to Indy at like, I don't know, at past midnight, and my gear is still soaking wet. So I call the rink guy and I was like, hey, I just landed. What should I do with my gear? He's like, it's too late. Just hang on to it. So the following day, I just had to play the entire All-Star game in my soaking wet gear for like 6 hours.
Oh.
It was actually horrible.
You scored the only goal for the North Division, if I remember those. So something about the soaking gear actually worked out for you that day.
Yeah, that was one of the craziest 4 days of hockey I've ever seen.
So because it's not only the game, it's like all the skill stuff too, and you had to sit around and watch all of that too.
Yeah, and the pictures, and then the skills competition, and then there's like 6 3-on-3 games. So it was like a solid 6 or 7 hours. I was just sitting in my gear. It was drier when I took it off than when I put it on. Sure.
I can imagine, because you were hanging around probably a little bit during pictures and skill stuff.
All day.
That's so you at that point did you air out your gear in the hotel? Like, did you drape it over the?
I don't even think I did at that
You just left it. You just said, okay, we're just gonna roll with it.
Yeah, it was late. But it was a great experience. I had a bunch of buddies come in from out of town. I was from St. Louis, so it was in Indy, which is like 4 hours away. So I had like 5 friends drive in, and we had a great weekend. So it was cool.
St. Louis seems to be up and coming hotbed for hockey. I know we talked about this before in the podcast, and just how interesting of a place it is, because you wouldn't really imagine it being that big for hockey, but we're starting to see more and more guys who are in the pro ranks from Missouri, from St. Louis. What was the experience like growing up in that area, and how has hockey fandom changed since when you were playing to what it is now?
Yeah, growing up, we always had a good team. I didn't think the citywide like depth was there. You look at like Chicago, Detroit, Toronto. There's like 4 or 5 really competitive AAA teams. We kind of just had the one. But one thing you did notice is every level had, a former NHL or former high-level player as the head coach, somebody's dad. Like we had McKinnis as a head coach, and then Walt Kachuk was around. Now Andy McDonald's there. So you just see like all these former Blues staying in St. Louis and kind of settling down there. And if you look at their alumni program, it's one of the best. They say it's the best behind the Maple Leafs, just in terms of how many guys contribute to it and stay in the city. So I think you see that St. Louis is having a lot of success now, but I think a lot of that, and big part, is just how many former alumni have stayed there and had families there and are involved with the youth hockey. And I think that's a big reason, or the main reason for the amount of growth that we've had as a city.
Where were you doing during the 19 Cup final?
Well, I was downtown with my friends for Game 6 that we lost, and then Game 7 they were they in Boston?
They were in Boston for Game 7.
Yeah, they were in Boston for Game 7. So I watched it with my dad, and it was just cool. It was special. Like, the Blues have kind of been one of those teams that are always in the hunt, but never could quite get over the hump. So it was one of the coolest things that I've seen as a city. The city was just rallying behind the Blues. Gloria was on every radio station. It was just a really cool time. A lot of people, I think that was great for the growth of the city, growth of hockey in the city. It's kind of a baseball town, but they definitely rallied pretty well behind the Blues that year.
And I know one of the things, I've never been to a Blues game. I've been to the arena just when I was in St. Louis once. I went to the gift shop because it was the summer. I went for a baseball game. But one of the things when watching the Blues on TV is really cool because you kind of get a sense of the atmosphere there. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about it, just watching on TV, was the amount of organ music they have at Blues games.
Well, yeah, that's like the Blues is, I guess St. Louis is known for that jazz, and they have the organ player on the keys, and it's just a big part of the atmosphere. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
It's just,
I mean, the goal song is when the Blues go marching in, play on when the Saints go marching in.
yeah, it's cool. It's a great atmosphere. That place rocks.
Yeah. And then especially, they adapted Gloria during that cup, the cup final run. And I mean, you mentioned it was played on the radio. How long did that go on for? How many weeks after until people were finally sick of hearing Gloria?
When they won the cup, there were stations who were like 24 hours straight Gloria. Like you couldn't get away from the song. So I think everyone was kind of happy when it was over. But like during the playoffs, like that song was awesome. It was such a kind of a random song, but I think the players started it and it kind of just caught fire. But just the whole thing was really special. And I think anytime that, you're involved in a championship or a city, you just see how much they rally behind it. And it's cool. It's amazing how people come together for it.
Evan's still waiting for his New York Islanders to win one in his lifetime.
I'm waiting for one of the teams that I root for, either the Jets, the Mets, or the Islanders, which, I mean, who knows at this point if it's ever going to happen, but maybe one day.
The Islanders were nice last year. I thought they had a chance.
Yeah, they were. But again, that was the furthest that they've gone in the postseason in my lifetime. So I was just like, I went over the point where it's like, I'm happy they're there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
At that point where it's just like, okay, it's new, but at the same time, it's like, okay, just win. Like, it'd be nice just to be like, okay, I already accepted the fact that I grew up rooting for all the wrong New York sports teams in terms of winning. Yeah. I knew that. And and everyone's like, oh, why don't you just switch fandoms? You can't switch fandoms. I'm in too deep at this point. And it's going to be great if any of those teams end up winning. So
you're more on the Mets, though, right? Like, you want the Mets to win more than any other, even though you're a big Jets fan?
The Mets would be my number one, for sure. For sure. And they were close in 2015, but then they lost because the bullpen couldn't do anything. Anyway, yeah, that's the closest. And then they lost to the Yankees in 2000, which I don't really count that because whenever the Yankees win.
Out of the Mets, though.
What's that?
Well, how would you pick the Mets over the Yankees?
Well, it comes down – it wasn't me personally. So growing up in New York, it all comes down to your family, like your father, your grandfather, who they root for. So my grandfather was a New York Giants fan, still is a New York Giants fan. He's a Mets fan now. But if your grandparents root for either the Dodgers or the Giants at that point, you're going to become a Mets fan because of the Yankees hate.
I gotcha.
So if they weren't a Yankees fan originally, you're not going to be a Yankees fan. That's kind of how it goes down. It's just the hatred for the Yankees. So it's instilled in you, that mentality that, they're going to be bad every year is instilled in you. You get so excited for opening day, and then
the Family Guy.
You're on the wrong side of that one, brother. You're on the wrong side of that.
But I'm in too deep at this point. I'm 27 years in. I can't get out of it now.
Can't change now.
Yeah.
Piv, I'll defer to you on the NCAA hockey questions because you actually saw this guy play in Minnesota State. So
I did
take your Bowling Green, Minnesota State, get all the knowledge out that you have a lot more than I do. So
Mavericks and the Falcons, and we were in college at the same time from 2013, 14 to 16, 17. So I got to see you play for all 4 years, and you were always one of the guys who was always a part of the score sheet, especially against Bowling Green. What were some of your favorite memories of playing at Minnesota State before we get into the nitty-gritty of how you ended up there?
You just look back, and I know we kind of came in at a tough time with the league restructuring. We kind of were – it was almost a left-behind league a little bit. But that also allowed us to be really good every year because, our strength of schedule wasn't quite what it would have been in the old conference. So the fact that we were so good every year, we were always competitive. We were top 5, top 10 in the country for my first few years there. You look back and it's rare you're on a team that good. And we won a few championships there, WCHA twice, and then regular season WCHA. So just anytime you're a part of a team that good, you're going to remember it. And it was incredible winning all those games.
I know Minnesota State because we've been there a bunch of times, but you mentioned just how crazy of a conference the WCHA is when you first came into it. I mean, you're going to – how many times did you end up going to Alaska in your 4 years?
I think twice. I think once my freshman year, once my junior year. And then we went for like 2 weeks my freshman year, which was cool. We got to bus across it, and we went from Fairbanks to Anchorage. And Anchorage is an unbelievable city. It's one of my favorite places to go.
Yeah, it's really cool. We never got to do. I went 5 times in
All the Fairbanks?
3 to Fairbanks, 2 to Anchorage.
Yeah.
So we never did the bus thing. I always wanted to do it.
It's cool.
Yeah, because I heard from everyone who's done it, it's just amazing. Just the sights that you see. It's like an 8-hour ride or something like that. But
yeah, right through the mountains, and
yeah,
it's neat.
Finer, that's something I think you would really enjoy.
I was going to say that because I actually, when we started talking about Alaska, this was like after like episode 1 or something. I think we were talking about like, oh, how many times you go up, and then me being the aspiring outdoorsman that does not own a Patagonia hat like you do, I went on Google Maps, and you go like right by Denali, like you go near the national park, I think, or something. I mean, you go up there. It seems like it's amazing. I would love to get there one day. I'm just enjoying the conversation. Listen to you guys talk about Alaska, though.
It's incredible. It's really cool to see. I would recommend it.
One of my favorite things in Mankato, when you know, there's, I forgot what the name of the bar is right by that hotel there. I'm trying to remember the name of it. What's that?
I don't know. There's a few. Blue Bricks, maybe.
One of them, but I know there's a pizza place right there. It's called Polito's.
Yeah. Yep.
And I remember they had a special. It was like 2 slices of pizza, a drink, and a T-shirt for like $7.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, and I think back-to-back years we went and got pizza after the staff went out for a couple of drinks, and I don't know where they are now, but I had like 2 or 3 Polito's Pizzas T-shirts, and I don't know where they are, but that's one of the things I always remember about Minnesota State. Did you ever find yourself with a Polito's Pizza T-shirt in your hand at any point?
It was probably late night. I probably didn't hang on to it if I had one. It was probably after hours. But yeah, it was a cool little city. It's definitely a college town. But yeah, that downtown kind of strip is pretty sweet, especially for the visiting team, because your hotel's right there. It's not places you're like right on the college strip like that. So
yeah,
it's a really fun city, and there are a bunch of little spots like that are kind of neat.
What drew you to the Mavericks?
Definitely just the hockey aspect. I was talking to Hastings when he was in Nebraska, Omaha, and then I was talking to the assistant coach at Minnesota State. So once Hastings and I was really, excited about Nebraska, Omaha. So once Hastings kind of made that jump to Minnesota State, I was like, oh, well, I'm talking to both these teams. It's kind of a perfect fit. So I went there for a visit, and I had a few more lined up after it. And then he ended up giving me like 48 hours to make a decision. So, I chose that, and looking back, I probably should have checked out the other few that I had lined up. But yeah, I made that decision, and, everything was as advertised. He said, we're going to be one of the best teams in the country. So yeah, he was definitely spot on with that.
My most memorable moment from a Bowling Green, Minnesota State game was a game at Minnesota State. It was a close game until I think Bowling Green had it's either a 2-minute power play or a 5-minute power play. And whatever it was, Bryce Gervais scored 2 shorthanded goals in the same penalty kill.
Both from Bluger.
Yes, both from Teddy Bluger, who's now, playing in the National Hockey League. You see the guy like Teddy Bluger, you're like, okay, he's going to, be playing with Sydney and the guys up there. But I mean, that was one of the things I remember. I was like, okay, because Bryce Gervais was one of the top guys on that team for sure, and he goes and he scores 1 shorthanded goal. We're like, okay, that's a backbreaker, and then he scores like 26 seconds later or whatever it was, and you're like, dude, this is it was wild. I haven't seen anything like that before and since, in person at least.
Yeah, we had some players there. There's no question. We were good. And our games with Bowling Green were always tight. They were always intense, but that's just how the league was. Like, especially you get those little buildings like Bowling Green and Ferris State, and they're hard to play in. Like those places, definitely college atmosphere. They're fun.
Did you get razzed a lot by the bleacher creatures at Bowling Green?
I feel like we got it everywhere we went, but I'm sure we had a couple of run-ins with those guys.
The only arena I've been in the WCHA is Ferris, so that's maybe my like bias or what I think of when I think of a college hockey arena. I mean, again, there's no I say there's no, but like there's no college hockey where I grew up. Like Rutgers doesn't have a program, so like people in Florida maybe aren't as familiar with Division I college hockey. So why would you sell them on going to a Division I college hockey game if they ever were able to?
I just think, the amount of passion, both from the fans and the players, is definitely, I would say it's at a higher level than any pro game you'll go to, unless it's playoffs. But I just think every game is like a must-win, most important game of the year. And if you lose on a Friday night, it's like Saturday is going to be the most intense day of your life. And I just think there's so much passion involved there that you can just feel it when you walk in the building. You have the student section playing music and the chants, and the place is just electric. The place is rocking, and it's definitely every game's do or die. So I would definitely recommend it if you're a hockey fan.
Is that an adjustment? Was that an adjustment for you as a player going from college hockey to pro hockey in terms of balancing your mindset after a loss? Because only playing 35, maybe 40 games in a season in college hockey, every win, every loss is so important. Then you go to, the ECHL and you have a 3-3, you lose Friday and you can't even get down about it because, you're traveling the next day and you're, you have a few more games in the next week. Was that difficult for you to kind of adjust to?
Yeah, it's definitely a different mentality, but I just think you have to have a shorter memory and pro. I don't know, even here, like we kind of have a culture where like we don't tolerate losing at all here. And every game, if you lose, like it's intense around here. It's just unacceptable. So I think that's part of the reason why we're so good. And it's almost kind of similar to that college, mindset where, we like last week we were on a 9-game win streak and it wasn't good enough. Like we were winning, but we might be winning ugly. And we're just constantly improving. But I think that's part of the reason why the team's so good here. So I can't really speak to other places. I know even in Reading, like losing is not acceptable. And I think if you're on a team that, you lose and there's no consequences, I think you're going to not be in a very good place to have success.
I got to ask you about one of your former teammates in Florida. Sorry to cut you off there, Finer. One of your former teammates in Florida who's now backstopping as a backup right now. Hasn't gotten into a game in the NHL yet, but Cam Johnson, an interesting character. I know we had him here in Adirondack.
He's a legend.
Yeah, he's one of the most. I mean, obviously when you talk about goalies, you talk about some interesting folk, and a lot of them. It depends on the situation, but Cam was always my favorite people just to kind of talk to because he always had something going on in his mind that he wanted to talk about. What are some of your favorite Cam Johnson stories?
Well, yeah, I played with him the last 2 years, and I had known about him, obviously, in Adirondack. Every time we played him, the guy stood on his head. And there was just something about him. You just knew there was going to be no easy goals. He just doesn't let anything soft in. So I had known about him before that, and then getting on a team with him was just he's not like many goalies you'll meet. He's one of the most, he's right in the mix of all the guys. He's very social, just a great guy, one of the best teammates I've ever had. So he put $300 on our board 2 weeks ago for if we win. So he's up there playing the NHL and he's still throwing money on his ECHL team's board. So that's just kind of what kind of guy he is. And he's a legend.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get him on Coastin at some point. I know I've sent a couple emails out, so I gotta keep him on because I think we'd have a great conversation with him as we are having with you right now, Mike.
One of the last ones that I have for you over here is, and I said this to Piv when I was pitching him on who do we want to have on the show this week, and I said something to the effect of like, maybe I don't come off. There's not too many guys that can kind of get me off my game and really like break me down. But I've told you this before that like you were one of the guys that was kind of like that. And it's sort of like a dry humor. You kind of like slowly bring up something and kind of you have the knife ready and you're always just ready to jab with a good chirp. I mean, is that pretty accurate to say? I think not in terms of me, but just how you are in how you are in general in terms of chirping guys out there or guys in the room?
Yeah, I think I like to have fun with guys. And like you said, I'm not really like the loudest guy or like gonna be super in the middle of everything. But yeah, I think I do kind of like to give it around and throw some chirps around. So you're not wrong there. But I don't remember exactly what I did to get you off your game, but I'm sure it was something. I'm sure it
Probably
was a little comment.
Yeah, just maybe something at the railroad house, packing up the equipment. I'm already trying to think about, we got a Wednesday game, the next day at home, Tuesday night at the railroad house. I got 50 different things going through my head. Can't slow the brain down. And you're just like, hey, something from 2 months ago, because you could see my head kind of, rushing around a little bit. That's probably something accurate to the effect of there. So
Yeah, I definitely miss the days in Reading. We had the staff in Reading has to be one of the funniest staffs in pro hockey between Jay Bird and Sean. And even when we had K-Mac and Weller as the coaches, it was just like a comedy show every day with those guys. So I miss it there for sure.
Well, I think that's going to put a bow on this excellent conversation, Michael. It's finally like great to meet you, like kind of face to face, even though we're online right now, because just seeing you play for the past 7 seasons now. I mean, it's always fun to watch you play. Best of luck this year in Florida, even though it's a strange year. You guys are you're playing well. You're having a great season, and just continued success to you, and stay safe.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. Great seeing you too, David.
yeah, good seeing you too, Huntsy.
All right. See you guys.